The snow came down the way it always did in late December, not dramatically, not in great sweeping curtains, but quietly, in thin, deliberate flakes that settled on the granite ledges outside Hartwell Capital's headquarters and stayed there. 42 floors of glass and steel, lit from within. It looked, from the street, like something that did not sleep. Evelyn Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window on the 38th floor and watched the city below without really seeing it. Her reflection was there in the dark glass, composed, tailored, untranslatable. She had worn the same expression at 29 when she'd closed her first fund. She wore it now at 36, running one. She had built Hartwell Capital from a 20-person advisory firm into a $3 billion asset management operation in 11 years. This was the version of the story that appeared in profiles, in introductions at panels, in the particular biography that preceded her name when she entered rooms. The version that didn't appear in those places was the one involving the 3 years of failure before the first success, the 2 business partners who left when the first round didn't close, the fact that she had slept on a colleague's couch for 4 months in 2013 because she could not afford to move to a larger city and pay rent simultaneously. She had never told anyone those parts, not because she was ashamed of them, she wasn't, but because she had found, early on, that vulnerability was currency, and currency had to be managed carefully if it was going to retain its value. Her assistant, Madeline Reyes, had been standing in the doorway for approximately 30 seconds. Evelyn knew this because she could hear the woman's breathing slightly quickened, the way it always was before she delivered news that required careful delivery. The Alderman Group confirmed attendance, Madeline said. Their principal partners will be at the gala Friday. Good. And a pause. The Post ran another item. Evelyn did not turn from the window. What did it say? That you've been seen alone at 3 consecutive industry events. They're framing it as instability. Personally. The word landed flat in the room. The board, Evelyn said. Caldwell reached out this morning. He's concerned the optics. I understand what he's concerned about. She finally turned. Madeline was holding a tablet with the article visible on screen. Evelyn did not look at it. She did not need to. She already knew what it said because she'd written the narrative herself, in a sense had chosen, years ago, to make her private life impenetrable, and had not anticipated that impenetrability could be misread as vacancy. Set up a call for tomorrow. And Madeline, yes? What did you actually come in here to suggest? Madeline was good at her job precisely because she had learned not to be embarrassed by transparency. There's a service, she said. Professional companions, very discreet. Several executives have. No, it would only be? I said no. I'm not going to pay someone to perform affection for a boardroom audience. She moved to her desk and picked up her pen. Find me someone real. Real, Madeline repeated, with the careful neutrality of a woman translating a foreign language in real time. With what qualifications? None. Someone who won't try to impress anyone. Someone who already knows exactly who he is. Madeline left. Evelyn looked at the contract on her desk, the alderman terms, 47 pages, margin notes in 3 colors. She had read it 3 times. There was a clause on page 31 that would give her leverage over the derivatives portfolio if she handled the optics Friday. If she walked in alone again, she already knew how Philip Alderman would read it. She picked up her pen. She crossed out a number. She wrote in a new one. The details, she had always believed, were everything. It was the coffee machine on the 32nd floor that brought them together, which was not a romantic thing, it was simply a mechanical thing, the way most consequential meetings are. The machine had been malfunctioning for 11 days. It produced a sound like a question being asked, and then declined to answer it. The facilities team had written a ticket. No one had come. On the 12th day, a man arrived with a toolbox. He was not tall in any way that announced itself. He wore dark trousers and a gray button-down shirt that had been ironed recently but not expensively. He set the toolbox on the floor beside the machine, opened it, and began to work without introduction or ceremony. He did not look around the room with the tentative assessment of someone who found himself in unfamiliar surroundings. He simply looked at the machine. Evelyn had come in for water, and stopped in the doorway. "You're from facilities?" she said. "Independent contractor." He did not look up. "Your valve seal is worn out." "That's the sound. And your heating element is drawing more current than it should. You'll have a full failure in about 2 weeks if nobody catches it." She waited. He did not add anything to this. "You diagnosed that in 30 seconds, she said. "In 20, but I wanted to be sure about the element." He unscrewed something with a precision she found unexpectedly interesting. "You want the valve replaced now, or both?" "Both." "That's another 40 minutes. "Fine." She got her water. She stayed. He worked with the particular stillness of someone who was not performing competence, but simply expressing it. No theater. No sideways glances to see if he was being observed. At one point his phone buzzed in his pocket, and he silenced it without checking who it was, finished the connection he was in the middle of, and only then looked at the screen. His face changed, not dramatically. Just a shift behind the eyes, the way a room changes when the temperature drops 2 degrees. "You need to leave?" she said. "No." He put the phone away. "My daughter had a follow-up appointment. They moved it to Monday." A pause. "She's fine," he added, in the particular tone men use when they are reassuring themselves as much as anyone else. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "What's your name?" she said. "Daniel Hayes." "Evelyn Carter." He did not react to this. She realized, only afterward, how unusual that was. Most people, most men, specifically, in the particular world she inhabited, did something with her name when they heard it. A recalibration, however slight, a shift in register. The name Evelyn Carter meant something in the financial district of New York in December, and most people let it mean something the moment they received it. He simply filed it and went back to the machine. The offer was made in the lobby at 6:14 the evening, when Daniel was packing his toolbox, and the building was emptying around them. She had rehearsed no version of what she was about to say, which was also unusual. "I have an event Friday night," she said. "A gala. I need someone to accompany me. Not a date. A role. One evening. Professional. You would be compensated." He looked at her. "Compensated how?" $50,000. The amount sat between them like a piece of furniture someone had moved without asking. He said, "For one evening, one evening. You would be introduced as my companion. You would not be expected to speak extensively. My schedule keeps me engaged with specific guests. You would simply need to be present, be yourself, and not do anything that would complicate my position with the investors in attendance. And, what is your position?" "That I am a stable, grounded person with a private life that does not require public scrutiny." He was quiet for a moment, not calculating something more interior than that. "I'll need to arrange care for my daughter," he said. "I'll have my assistant coordinate anything you need." He picked up his toolbox. He stood there a moment longer, looking at something she couldn't place: the floor, the middle distance, the Monday appointment he'd just referenced. His phone buzzed again. This time he checked it. He read whatever was on the screen, and something in his posture changed, almost imperceptibly, the way a structure settles when additional weight is placed on it, finding new equilibrium. "Friday," he said. "Cocktail hour begins at 7. I'll send a car at 6:30. "I don't need a car, Mr. Hayes. I'll meet you there." He looked up. His eyes were gray and very direct. The eyes of a man who had decided to stop being surprised by things. "And I don't want a stylist. You understand the dress code. I own a suit." She looked at him. He did not elaborate. She recognized the particular grammar of this, the refusal to perform need, and found that she respected it more than she expected to. "Friday at 7, she said. "Friday at 7, he agreed. He walked out through the lobby doors into the snow without looking back. She watched him until the revolving door had completed its full rotation and left only its own reflection in the glass. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a building in Astoria that did not have a doorman or a lobby in any aspirational sense of the word. The elevator worked 3 days out of 5. On the other days, Daniel took the stairs, which he did not mind. His daughter Lily was 7 years and 4 months old, which she announced to most people within the first minute of meeting them, as though it were a professional credential. She was at the kitchen table when he came in, drawing something that appeared to be either a solar system or a dog. "You're late," she said, without looking up. "I know. I had to fix a coffee machine. Did it fight back?" "A little." He set his toolbox down, washed his hands, checked the stove. "Mrs. Okafor called. She said she can stay Friday. She also said to tell you she charges extra after midnight, and that's not negotiable." "Fair." He made dinner pasta, the shape Lily called the elbow kind, and they ate at the table, which they did every night. Always at the table, always together. This was one of the rules he had kept with absolute consistency after Sarah died, 4 years ago. The table was non-negotiable. The table was the thing he had held on to when everything else went out from under him. And it had been enough. He had learned, in the years since Sarah, that grief did not move in the direction people expected. It did not diminish steadily, growing lighter with distance, like sound from a closing door. It changed shape, it relocated. It turned up in the creak of the third stair, in the way Lily tilted her head when she was concentrating, in the particular angle of light on Sunday mornings that had once meant something and now meant only that it was Sunday. You didn't recover from the shape-shifting. You got better at living inside it. What you kept, if you were careful, was the table, the pasta, the Tuesday and the Thursday, the ordinary rhythm that said, "We are still here, we are still us. The world is still organized enough to hold us." "Where are you going Friday?" Lily said. He thought about how to phrase it. He was not a man who lied to his daughter. Not even conveniently. Not even for efficiency. "A formal event," he said. "Someone needs me to be there. To fix something?" In a way, she considered this with the seriousness of a child who has learned that adults' answers are always slightly incomplete and has decided to tolerate that. "Will you wear the good tie?" "What's the good tie?" "The dark blue one. Mom gave it to you." He was quiet for a moment. "Yeah," he said. "I'll wear that one." She went back to her solar system, or her dog, or whatever the truth of it was. He sat across from her and watched her draw, and thought about the medical bill that had arrived Tuesday, the specialist, the tests, the number at the bottom of the page that was not impossible but required him to be better than his current circumstances allowed. He thought about $50,000. He thought about what Sarah would have said, and then he thought, she would have said, "Do it, Daniel. Stop being so proud about everything." Which was true, and also not as simple as she always made it sound. He cleared the dishes. He washed them. He checked his suit, which he had not worn in 8 months, and found that it still fit, which was the kind of small victory that a man in his situation learned to acknowledge. He ironed his dark blue tie with the care of someone handling something that could not be replaced. The car Evelyn sent, despite his refusal, was parked outside his building at 6:15. He looked at it from the doorway, then looked at the driver, who had the professionally neutral expression of someone paid to be exactly where they were. Daniel took a cab. He arrived at the Meridian Hotel at 6:58. The gala occupied the entire East Wing ballroom, connecting terraces, a private dining room where, he gathered from the placement of security, the real conversations would happen. The lobby was the kind of lobby that had been designed to communicate a specific message to a specific class of person, and Daniel was neither the message nor the audience. He stood just inside the entrance and scanned the room with the particular efficiency of someone who has spent years diagnosing systems from the outside. He identified the main circulation paths, the bottlenecks, the table arrangements that would favor certain conversations over others. He identified Evelyn Carter across the room in approximately 4 seconds. She was wearing something dark navy or black, difficult to determine in this light. And she was speaking with 2 men in charcoal suits, with the focused attention of someone who was only partially present in that conversation, while tracking 3 others simultaneously. She was very good at this. He could see her doing it. Her posture was a performance so refined it had become natural. She saw him. Something shifted the slightest recalibration. She crossed to him without hurrying. "You came," she said. "I said I would." She looked at his suit, at the tie. She did not comment, but something in her expression adjusted in a way he found difficult to categorize. The alderman principals are at the table by the terrace, she said quietly. Philip Alderman is 62, old money, deeply uncomfortable with anything he perceives as instability. His partner, Greta Voss, is more important. She controls the actual allocation decisions. She will ask you direct questions, answer them directly. She doesn't respect evasion. Understood. Victor Hale is my CFO. He will likely be unpleasant to you. Why? Because I didn't tell him I was bringing anyone, and because he considers my personal life to be part of his strategic portfolio. A pause. Don't let him rattle you. He won't. She looked at him again. You're very calm, she said. I fixed a coffee machine today, he said. It helps to have perspective. Something moved across her face almost, briefly, like amusement. Then she composed it. Ready? She said. Lead the way, he said. The alderman table was arranged with the careful precision of a chessboard mid-game, everyone positioned to maximum effect, maximum visibility, maximum inference. Philip Alderman was exactly as described. 62, silver-haired, with the handshake of a man who had made that handshake mean something for 40 years and had no intention of stopping. He looked at Daniel with the frank assessment of someone who was accustomed to rapid evaluation and expected to be right. Daniel Hayes, Evelyn said. My partner. The word landed differently than companion would have. Daniel noted this without comment. What field are you in, Mr. Hayes? Alderman said. Systems, Daniel said. Finance, technology, infrastructure mostly. The underlying architecture of things. Greta Voss, who had said nothing yet, looked up from her wine glass with the particular quality of attention that signals someone has just heard something worth hearing. She was 57 and had the eyes of a person who had been bored by many rooms and was always quietly hoping the current one would be different. Which systems, specifically, she said. Financial data infrastructure. The kind nobody talks about until it fails. She smiled, not warmly precisely. That's most of technology, in my experience. Most of everything, he said. Alderman laughed. Voss's expression sharpened another degree, which was, Daniel sensed, her version of approval. Victor Hale arrived at the table approximately 12 minutes into this. He was 50. Fit in the deliberate way of someone who had decided fitness was a professional signal, and he wore his irritation like a second jacket present, but supposedly invisible. He shook Daniel's hand with the brief pressure of a man who has decided in advance not to be impressed. I don't think we've met, he said. We haven't, Daniel said. Hale looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked at the terrace doors, with the attention of someone who has pre-decided not to participate in a particular conversation. Hale turned back to Daniel. What brings you into Evelyn's orbit? A coffee machine, Daniel said. Hale waited. Daniel did not elaborate. He's being modest, Evelyn said, without looking at either of them. He's been in financial infrastructure longer than most people in this room have been in finance. This was, technically, not false. Hale smiled the smile of a man filing information for later use. The conversation moved through the predictable terrain of these events, market projections, regulatory environments, the particular brand of pessimism that people with significant capital expressed as sophistication. Daniel spoke when spoken to and was consistently, unhelpfully specific. When Alderman made an observation about derivatives exposure in emerging markets, Daniel corrected a figure, not aggressively, simply accurately. That's not quite right, he said. The Q3 exposure on that index shifted after the Basel adjustment. The number you're referencing is about 14 months old. Alderman paused. You're certain of that? The revised figure is 42 basis points lower. I can pull the documentation if you'd like. He did not pull out his phone. He simply looked at Alderman with the equanimity of someone who does not need documentation because the documentation is internal. Alderman turned to Hale. Is that right? Hale's jaw moved slightly. I'd need to verify. It's right, Greta Voss said, with the tone of someone who had already known and had been curious whether anyone else would catch it. Hale looked at Daniel with an expression that was no longer the careful irritation of a man managing a minor inconvenience. It was something more calculated. Evelyn had been half-turned toward the terrace doors. She turned back now and looked at Daniel with an expression she almost immediately filed away. He had not been performing. He had simply been correct. She found him at the edge of the room 30 minutes later, near a window, holding a glass of water instead of wine. He was watching the room the way she watched rooms, not with curiosity, but with analysis. "You corrected the CFO of Hartwell Capital in front of our principal investors," she said quietly. "He had the wrong number," Daniel said. "I thought you'd want the right one in the room. You were supposed to be background." "I am background." "Background doesn't mean silent." She studied his profile. "Where did you get that figure?" "I keep up with the indices." He took a drink of water. "I have time." "In the evenings. After fixing coffee machines." After fixing coffee machines, he looked at her. "Is this a problem?" She wanted to say yes. She found, inconveniently, that she could not make the word convincing even to herself. "Stay away from Hale for the rest of the evening," she said. "I'm not going near Hale," he said. "He's going to come near me." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "He's been watching me for the last 20 minutes. A pause. "He's worried about something." "Not me, something I represent." He looked across the room. "You should be worried about it too." She followed his gaze. Hale was at the bar, speaking to someone in a low voice, his back turned with the deliberateness of someone who wanted their back turned. "What are you saying?" she said. "I'm not saying anything yet," Daniel said. "I'm waiting to be sure." The panel discussion began at 9, a moderated conversation on data infrastructure in financial markets, with Alderman, Voss, 2 other principals, and Evelyn as panelist. Daniel sat 3 tables back, and to the left, where the light was thinner and a person could think without being observed. A moderator raised a question about Hartwell's Q4 infrastructure roadmap. Evelyn answered it fluently, with the particular confidence of someone who has prepared thoroughly and can speak from preparation without sounding prepared. She was very good at this. He watched her with the same attention he gave to machines he'd been asked to diagnose, not to admire, but to understand. At 9:22, Hale leaned forward from his chair at the edge of the panel area and interjected a figure into Evelyn's answer. It was wrong, not catastrophically. Not in a way that would be obvious to anyone in the room who didn't already know the correct number. Wrong in the particular way of a number that is almost right, close enough to be plausible, different enough to be significant. Daniel set his water glass down. He looked at the number on the presentation slide behind the panel, which Hale had apparently just updated from his seat. The slide had changed while Evelyn was speaking, smoothly, without announcement. A number in the lower right quadrant of a financial summary table. It had been one figure 3 minutes ago. It was a different figure now. Daniel looked at Hale. Hale was watching Evelyn with the expression of someone who had just moved a piece on a board and was waiting to see if anyone noticed. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket. He had brought his phone, which he had not expected to use. He opened a specific application, one that interfaced with a protocol he had built years ago and had never entirely left behind, the way certain structures don't leave you even when you leave them. He began, quietly, to check. At 9:47, the evening changed. It began as a murmur at the back of the room. Someone's phone. Then someone else's. Then a cluster of phones all lighting at once in the particular synchronized way that always meant something had broken rather than something had been announced. Evelyn saw it from the panel. She felt it before she understood it, the shift in the room's energy, the way attention began moving away from the table. The moderator paused, looked at something off stage, looked back at Evelyn. "Miss Carter," he said carefully, "I'm told there may be an issue with your firm's data systems." The room was now fully oriented toward this information. 40 people in evening wear, every one of them with enough capital to make what happened next consequential, all of them watching her face. She controlled her face. This was not difficult. She had been controlling her face in rooms like this since she was 24. What was difficult was the fact that she did not yet know what the issue was. "Would you excuse me for one moment?" she said, and it was not a question. She stepped off the panel platform. Madeline was already coming toward her from the left, tablet in hand, face carefully composed in the way Madeline composed her face when the news was bad. The data management system, Madeline said quietly. There's an error in the reporting layer. The numbers being shown to the investor portal don't match the underlying data. Since when? The discrepancy started approximately 40 minutes ago. 40 minutes ago. At approximately the same time, the slide had changed. Evelyn looked across the room. She found Daniel without looking for him. He was already watching her. He gave her the smallest possible nod. The kind that means I know, and I'm ahead of it. Hale materialized at her shoulder. This is a systems issue, he said. It is on it. I've already reached out to. How long have you known? She said. I was informed minutes ago. You were on your phone at 9:20, she said. Before the first guest noticed anything, his jaw tightened. Evelyn. This is not the time. No, she agreed. It isn't. She walked toward Daniel. He was seated, still calm, phone face down on the table. When she reached him, he looked up and did not say, I told you, or you should have listened earlier, which she noted with a gratitude she did not have words for at that moment. The reporting layer, she said. It's not a malfunction, he said. Someone modified the data. Not the raw data, the aggregation layer between the raw data and the reporting interface. It's a very specific intervention. It takes expertise to do it that way. A pause. It also takes access. How do you know this? He looked at her steadily. Because I built the original architecture of that system, I know where you'd have to reach to do exactly that. The room was still behind her. Guests murmuring. Hale somewhere, in her peripheral vision, working his phone. When you say you built it, she said. 7 years ago, he said. I was the lead architect. Before the firm was recapitalized. Before Hale came in, she sat down. Not from weakness, from the need to be at his level for this conversation. To receive it correctly. You designed Hartwell's infrastructure, she said. The core of it. Yes. And then you left. Something moved in his expression. My wife was diagnosed. I needed to be somewhere else. She said nothing. The system was sold as part of the recapitalization, he said. I didn't contest it. I didn't stay in contact with the firm. I didn't tell anyone who I was. He looked at his phone, but I still know where to look. He did not ask her permission. He opened his laptop. He had brought it in his bag, which no one had thought unusual for a man who arrived without a car, and with his own suit, and connected through a secondary protocol that, technically, he had never formally surrendered access to. This was either a security vulnerability or a piece of luck, depending on your perspective. The room was in managed chaos. Hale had assembled the IT contacts. The floor manager had dimmed the main lights to create the illusion of control. Guests were being offered fresh drinks with the particular attentiveness of staff, who know a crisis is being managed in the next room. Evelyn sat beside Daniel and watched him work. He worked the way he fixed machines, without theater, without narration, with the focused precision of someone who knows exactly where to put their hands. Here, he said. She looked at the screen. A log file timestamps, access signatures, modification records. This entry, he said. He did not point dramatically. He simply indicated with the lightest touch of his index finger. 9:19 p.m. An aggregation rule was overwritten. This is not an automated process. It requires manual input at the admin level. He scrolled. And here, the access credential used to make this change. It's a service account. But service accounts don't initiate changes at 9:19 p.m. during a gala. He stopped scrolling. They initiate changes when someone is actively using them. Who has admin access to the service accounts? He looked at her. He did not say the name. He did not need to. She looked across the room. Hale was standing with his back to them near the terrace doors, speaking quietly to a man she recognized as a representative from the Calder Group, Hartwell's primary competitor for the alderman allocation. He's been engineering this, she said. It was not a question. The modification is designed to make your reporting appear inconsistent with your actual performance. For someone reviewing it quickly, someone in a panicked 30 seconds, someone who doesn't know the underlying data, it would look like the firm's numbers had been misrepresented. Daniel closed the laptop. During a gala, in front of your largest potential partners, Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. The sounds of the room were very distant. He wanted the alderman allocation to fall through, she said, and then walk out with the data to show it was your mismanagement, and go to Calder. Daniel didn't answer. He looked at her with the patience of someone who understands that people need to hear certain things out loud before they can fully hold them. She sat with it. 5 seconds. 10. Then she stood up. She brought him water. It was the only thing she could think to do that wasn't strategic, and she needed, for a moment, to do something that wasn't strategic, and set it beside his laptop. "Tell me the rest," she said. He looked at the glass. He picked it up. "I graduated from MIT. Computer science. Then a master's in financial systems architecture. I built infrastructure for 3 firms before Hartwell, the last one was acquired, and the principal offered me a position here. I was here for 6 years." He turned the glass in his hands. "I built the data aggregation system, the reporting layer, the audit protocol, and the disaster recovery framework. I had a team of 11. We worked well." A pause. "When Sarah got sick, I took leave. When she died, I didn't come back. Why? Because the recapitalization happened while I was on leave. The new structure Hale came in as CFO during that period. By the time I was in a position to think about work again, the contracts had been renegotiated and my role had been reassigned. Absorbed. A quiet beat. I didn't fight it. I had other things to fight. You built the foundation of this company," she said. "I built a system," he said. "Systems are built, and then they belong to whoever runs them. That's how it works." He looked at her. "I'm not angry about it. I want to be clear about that. I'm not here for—" "I know you're not," she said. And she did know. This was the thing that had been legible about him from the first moment, the quality of a man who was not managing an agenda. "The reason I still have access to that secondary protocol," he said, "is not because I kept it deliberately. It's because the firm's IT migration during the recapitalization was done carelessly, and they didn't fully audit the legacy credentials. I discovered this about a year ago, when I was doing contract work for a client who used a connected system. I closed the access on my end, but the credential still technically exists in their architecture." He paused. "What I used tonight to look at the logs, I wasn't accessing anything I altered or damaged. I was reading. Just reading." "You could have used that access to do damage," she said. "Yes. You didn't." "No." She looked at him. "Why did you say yes to this evening?" He was quiet for a moment. He set the glass down with care. "My daughter needs a procedure in February," he said. "The kind that costs more than I have." It was the most direct thing he had said all evening. It landed in her chest like something physical. "I would have paid you regardless," she said. "Even if you had spent the entire evening standing silently at the edge of the room." "I know," he said. "But I couldn't stand silently at the edge of the room, because of the number on the slide. Because of the number on the slide." She almost smiled. She didn't quite. "All right," she said. "Then let's finish this." She did not call a formal meeting. She did not send an email, or alert the board, or engage counsel. She walked across the room and found Greta Voss, who was, predictably, the right person to approach, not because Voss controlled the allocation, but because Voss had the particular quality of person who would rather have an uncomfortable truth than a comfortable fiction. "I need 5 minutes," Evelyn said. Voss looked at her. "That's a sentence that usually means 12, she said. "But all right." The private dining room off the east corridor was empty. Daniel came. Alderman was already moving toward them. He'd been watching Evelyn for the last 20 minutes, with the attention of a man who'd survived 3 market crashes by reading rooms correctly. Hale materialized in the doorway. "Evelyn," he said. "Whatever you're about to do." "Victor," she said. "Sit down." He did not sit down. He stood in the doorway, with the particular posture of a man calculating exits. Daniel set his laptop on the table. He opened it. He turned it so Voss and Alderman could read the screen. He did not speak. He let the log file speak. Greta Voss read it once. Then she read it again with the slower, more deliberate attention of someone ensuring they have understood correctly before they act on understanding. 9:19 p.m., she said. Yes, Daniel said. And this credential is an admin-level service account. The access history for this account shows no prior activity between the hours of 6 p.m. and midnight in any record I can see going back 18 months. Tonight is an anomaly. He paused. The anomaly happens to coincide with the modification that caused the reporting discrepancy. Alderman looked at Hale. He did not say anything. He was the kind of man who made very few statements when a look would do the same work. Hale said, "This is being taken out of context. The system had a known instability, and You were on the phone at 9:20, Evelyn said. 45 seconds after this modification was logged. You were speaking to someone from Calder Group. That's not. His name is Stephen Bryce. He's standing near the bar right now." She turned to Voss. Bryce and Hale have a working relationship that predates his tenure at Hartwell by 3 years. I learned this 6 weeks ago. I did not know, at the time, what it meant. Voss was very still. You suspected, Voss said. I suspected something. I couldn't prove it. Evelyn did not look at Hale. Tonight proved it. The room was quiet. Hale made one more attempt, a half-sentence about legal exposure, about the inaccuracy of log files, about the need for a proper audit. And it dissolved in the air because Voss had already stopped listening. And when Greta Voss stopped listening, rooms followed. Alderman was looking at the laptop screen with the expression of a man doing mathematics he had not expected to be doing this evening. He was the kind of man who had survived long enough in finance to know what certain combinations of timestamps and access credentials meant. And what they meant was not subtle. We'll need this documentation preserved, he said. Not to Hale, to Daniel. Already copied to 3 separate archives, Daniel said. Alderman looked at him with something that was not quite assessment anymore. Something more like the beginning of a different kind of interest entirely. You built the original system, Voss said. It was not a question. She had been listening more carefully than anyone had realized. Yes, he said. And you're not currently employed by Hartwell. I'm an independent contractor. A brief pause. I fix coffee machines. Something moved across Voss's face. It was not quite a smile, but it was adjacent to one, the expression of a person who has just encountered something that has exceeded her expectations for the evening, which was itself an unusual occurrence. Well, she said, that's remarkable. The Alderman group did not withdraw from the gala. They stayed. They concluded the evening's discussions. Voss shook Evelyn's hand at 11:15 with the particular quality of handshake that meant something more than courtesy. Hale left at 10:47. He did not say goodbye to anyone. The formal details, the audit, the board notification, the legal process would begin Monday. Evelyn had already sent 2 messages from the terrace at 11 while the room was still resettling. She was thorough, even in crises, especially in crises. Daniel found her there. The terrace was cold. The snow had stopped, but the air held the memory of it, that particular stillness after a snowfall where the world seems to be holding a breath. The lights of the city were very bright and very distant below them. He stood beside her. Not close, not conspicuously distant, simply present, which was, she realized, the quality he had been expressing all evening without naming it. The allocation, she said. Voss seemed satisfied, he said. She seemed more than satisfied. A pause. She'll move the committee forward. It's not guaranteed, but the conversation shifted. Good. Because of you. He looked at the city. Because of a log file. You found the log file. You would have found it, he said. Eventually. Not tonight. He was quiet. Why didn't you tell me who you were, she said. When I hired you, you knew whose company you were coming into. You hired me to stand quietly and look like a companion, he said. You didn't hire me to resurface with a grievance about a 5-year-old recapitalization. You don't have a grievance? He turned his head slightly and looked at the city with the expression of a man taking an honest inventory. I had one, he said. For a while. After Sarah died and the restructure happened, and I was standing in an apartment in Astoria, trying to understand how 6 years of work had simply evaporated. A pause. But grievances are very expensive to maintain. They take up the space that other things need. Like Lily. Like Lily. He turned to look at her. And like work. Real work. The kind you can finish at the end of the day and put in your toolbox. She looked at him for a long time. The sounds of the party were muffled through the terrace doors, someone laughing, the clink of glass, the managed sound of a crisis that had been resolved and was now being reclassified as an interesting story. The snow was still absent. The air had that scoured quality of a city that has been briefly quieted and is now reassembling itself. Evelyn had stood on many terraces at many events and had almost always been reviewing something in her head next quarter, next conversation, the clause on page 31. She was not reviewing anything now. She was simply standing in the cold in a dark dress beside a man she had hired to be decorative, who had turned out to be structural, which was its own form of lesson about the difference between what you think you need and what actually holds things up. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You hired me under clear terms," he said. "You don't owe me. I'm not apologizing for the terms. I'm apologizing for the way I spoke to you when you corrected the slide number." She held his gaze. "I told you, you'd overstepped. You hadn't. You were right, and I was wrong. And I said it in the way I say things when I feel threatened." He was quiet. "That's a more honest sentence than most people would produce," he said. "I've been working on it." "How long?" "About 4 hours." Something moved across his face, brief and genuine, and unfiled. 3 days later, on a Monday that was cold and ordinary, and exactly the kind of day nothing extraordinary happens, Evelyn Carter arrived at the 4th-floor apartment in Astoria for the first time. She had not called ahead. She recognized, even as she was doing it, that this was slightly unreasonable. She came anyway. Daniel answered the door in a gray shirt and jeans. Behind him, Lily was at the kitchen table with what appeared to be a school project involving a poster board and a significant quantity of yellow markers. He looked at her. He did not look surprised, exactly more like someone who had not predicted this outcome, but found upon its arrival that it was coherent. "Evelyn Carter," he said. "Evelyn Carter," she agreed. He stepped aside. The apartment was small and organized with the particular efficiency of a person who has learned to make space do more than its square footage suggests. It was clean. It had bookshelves, not decorative ones, but working ones, the kind where books are opened and returned in different positions than they left. There was a toolbox near the door and a child's drawing taped to the refrigerator. The drawing appeared to be a solar system. There was also, on the counter, a coffee machine, a small domestic one, clean and precisely positioned, and she found herself looking at it with something she could not immediately name. Lily looked up from her poster board with the frank assessment of a 7-year-old who has not yet learned to modulate curiosity. "You're a stranger," she said. "I am," Evelyn said. "My name is Evelyn. That's an old-fashioned name." "I know. I like it," Lily said, and returned to the yellow markers. Daniel made coffee. Evelyn sat at the kitchen table. There was something slightly surreal about this, sitting in the same geography as the table he had described, the table that was the rule that had held and waited. He set a cup in front of her. He sat across from her. "The board meeting is Wednesday," she said. "I know. I saw the statement. I'd like you to speak at it. Formally. The audit will need the original architecture explained. And you're the only person who can explain it credibly. You could find a technical consultant. I could. But they wouldn't know where Victor hid the entry point." She looked at her coffee. "And they wouldn't do it the way you would. How would I do it? Without making it about anything other than the facts." She looked up. "That's rarer than you'd think." He was quiet for a moment. He turned his coffee cup slightly on the table, a small, automatic gesture. "The procedure," she said. "For Lily. The February one." He was very still. "I want to cover it," she said. "Not as payment for anything. Not as continuation of the terms of Friday." As she paused, looking for the right word, as making right something that should have been right a long time ago. The recapitalization was legal, he said. Whatever was lost in it, I know it was legal. I'm not arguing the legal question. She held his gaze. I'm saying that the system you built made this company what it is, and you received nothing for it after the restructure. And a 7-year-old in Astoria shouldn't pay that cost. He was quiet for a long time. Lily, without looking up from her poster board, said, Dad. She's nice. He looked at his daughter. He looked at Evelyn. The board meeting, he said. Wednesday at 2. I'll be there. He picked up his coffee. I'm not coming back to the firm full time. I know. I have work I like. I know that too. She almost smiled. But if you'd be willing to consult, on a case-by-case basis, when the architecture needs, send me a message when something breaks, he said. And if nothing breaks, then your systems are well maintained. He looked at her over the rim of his cup with the gray, direct eyes of a man who does not need the last word. That's the goal, isn't it? She thought about this. She thought about all the things she had managed, and all the things she had controlled, and the 38th floor window, and the snow that fell quietly, and the lobby where he had walked out without looking back, and the terrace where the city had been very bright and very distant. She thought about what it meant to build something, to put it together carefully, component by component, to know exactly where each part sat and why, and then to walk away from it. Not because it had failed, but because something more important had needed tending. She had spent 11 years building Hartwell and had never once considered walking away. She did not know whether this said something good about her or something limited. Possibly both. She thought about the coffee machine, which had made a sound like a question being asked, and then declined to answer it for 11 days until someone who understood it arrived. Yes, she said. That's the goal. The coffee machine on the 32nd floor was running flawlessly by Thursday morning. Someone in facilities had finally processed the original ticket. But the machine had already been fixed, in fact, on the 12th day of its malfunction, by a man who had not signed a work order and had not invoiced anyone and had not told the building manager his name. On Thursday afternoon, Evelyn walked past the machine on her way to a meeting. She stopped. She stood there for a moment, listening to the sound. It made a clean, resolved sound. The sound of a thing that was working correctly. She thought about the way he had known, in 20 seconds, what was wrong. She thought about the number on the slide, and the log file, and the dark blue tie, and the solar system on the refrigerator. She thought about what it cost to hold your value without advertising it, to move through rooms where everyone was performing and simply refuse, quietly and completely, to perform. She got her coffee. She went to her meeting. She was 3 minutes early, which was unlike her. And for once, she did not spend those 3 minutes reviewing documents or answering messages. She sat at the conference table with her coffee, and she looked out the window at the city below gray-white winter sky. Buildings catching the light, 42 floors of glass and steel, holding steady against the cold, and she let herself be, for a moment, simply in the room. It was the closest she had come to stillness in a very long time. She had not realized, until this moment of comparison, how long she had been moving, how many rooms she had passed through without landing, how many conversations she had managed rather than had. It was not a sad realization. It was the kind of realization you can only reach when something in your life has quietly, without announcement, shifted, when a door you didn't know was closed has come open a few degrees and let in air you didn't know you'd been missing. Somewhere in Astoria, she thought, a man was fixing something, and in the fixing, everything was exactly as it should be.